Yeah. So I have that's like building. Oh yeah. And now I like all my board. Yeah. Yeah. I want to. I feel like they're like it'll yeah. Was it but it wasn't like regular set, like all they they like they you know you know like that. So I out you know I know still so you know well I
Just want to thank everybody for coming out to our 7th Buckhead event. Running pretty consistently every week. To our event today. Just wanted to talk to you guys about what we're doing. So we're building a place for this location. I'm sitting right now at the storage space, but we also actually a community center. We also just launched our incubator cohort. We started incubating companies out of Atlanta that are building Web3, blockchain, anything like that. Out of that. And then, so far, we actually just launched DAO Day, which is event Tuesday for the DAO. If you don't know, you can see events of the DAO. You want to power back to you. We never really had power. When it comes to that, everybody knows that we want to stay the opportunity to live in the city. That's why we created the DAO. I guess that pretty much kicks it off. Fun event. Pass up there. Everyone's a thing. Fun. I mean, more as my role at the center, work partnerships, and together content like we have tonight. And I'm really excited. I love like all guys and and therefore anything that's about empowering artists to make a living doing that, to open up the creative channels for them to stay inside. So that's the topic tonight about blockchain Web3 is impact music industry. We've got amazing panelists. So over here, Jeremy Phillipson is the moderator. Robert Hatcher. I'm not going to get their bio. Sean Paul, Mr. Lathry, and Aaron Neal. And Aaron came to me, to Angela and I, talking about doing something on this topic. So you can spread it. With that, I'm going to turn it over to these guys and enjoy and give them a chance to kind of get through a bit of the discussion, and then we'll be plenty of time for questions. Cool, thanks. How's it going, guys? All right. We're not getting wet right now. Excited to be here. I thought we could do guys. By the way, we had a free call, and it probably could have lasted 6 hours. What you guys have going on? I'm so excited to hear about that. But we'll start with a little background. I'll start with quick how you guys fired through. So I've been at this really crazy intersection of music, tech, brand, entertainment for like the last 20 years. I started a music production company about 2 years ago called Tune Mothers. Started making little ad spots, got into film and television. I was moved into podcasting. From there, went into VR and AR, spatial audio, and animatronics, trying to figure out all of this stuff way back in the day. About 8 years ago, I was asked to figure out, pulled into a project and said, "Hey, Jeremy, I need some help designing what it sounds like inside a blood vessel for this drug VR experience." I'm like, "All right, let's go." This is fun. So from there, I kind of went into music and brand consulting, partnered with a guy named Joe Belliani, ran global music at Coca-Cola, started advising brands on kind of bi-directional value exchanges in music and brand. So what can you do for music? What can you do for brand? Like let's do it together. More recently, about 2 years ago, had a friend probably similar to you guys that said, "Hey, if you don't know what NFTs are, you should probably get into them." I've been in a rabbit hole ever since. I do a lot of writing, basically sharing on technology. I lead a couple of Web3 initiatives for a few companies, and super excited to be here. But with that, Robert, fire away, man.
What's up, everybody? My name is Robert essentially, we're all platform, and that's a little bit. Peace and blessings to you all. How are you doing today? I'm Sean. I also provide Mr. Walk Free, and I'm a very performing music artist, hip hop, based out of Atlanta. Been building the space for quite some time. I've been making music independently since 2012. Have released over 11 bodies of work thus far. Started with blockchain back in 2017, and I really just dove deep into the technology at the time. I didn't just see it as that's I actually understood that the underlying technology that was really about to radically shape our future. So I did my due diligence to learn as much as I possibly could since then, 2017. And then February 2021, I started to dive deeper into the NFTs. And I spent several hours across several days, weeks, and months learning on Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, just really engaging with the community on the ground level. And I was fortunate enough to also host a listening event in Centraland, so had some metaverse experience, doing some music there as well. And yes, since then I released music across border blockchains, and have done some pretty interesting things. Hi everyone, my name is Eric Deal, technologist, Georgia Peter. During my time here, I worked very, very intimately in the space between technology and music. I got my start, working with blockchain, trying to solve that problem, royalties in the music space. What it turned taught me is understanding that we have a lot to learn when it comes to how to articulate things may not know, right? And I found that biggest atoms facing the field user space are how technologies have now work blockchain, AR, and
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So give me a feel for the room because I want to make sure this is valuable stuff that we're putting out. So kind of raise your hands. Are you more on the tech side or more on the music side? So let's go tech. Okay. Okay. Music side. All right. Okay. Cool. Yeah. No, that's good. That'll help us kind of hone in on what's most exciting. And afterwards, I'm hoping Sean can help you with it because you definitely have the best name on the panel. By far, by far. Okay, so we all know the music industry has major challenges, right? These are calcified systems that were set up by people that aren't certified, right? So I always think about it like, how do we look at it from two perspectives? One is an outside in, right? So it's all of us on the outside, fringe, doing things to change things on the inside, but then eventually there has to be an inside out approach. Like, so Sean, let's start with you. Like, what is the first thing that is tangible that we can get our arms around that you may have done or people have done to start doing outside stuff?
Excellent question. So, from the outside in, for those who are completely new to the space of Web3 and may not know what blockchain are, I think getting in at that ground floor, the outside, the um, tapping in those they patron, like the artists that they are familiar with that might be offering something new. You might see them speaking about something, posting on their social media, that they have this collectible thing that they want you to engage in. And not all of them have high barriers to entry, right? Like one of the things that is a challenge, of course, is the mass adoption and the user experience, onboarding experience that we have with Web3. And currently, it's still quite challenging for people to overcome some of those initial hurdles. Yet at the same time, there are platforms that already exist that are very easy to interact with. You can simply log in, click a button, check out with your credit card, and you now own an NFT by an artist that you pay, right? So that's those low barrier entry kind of experiences that people can get from the outside to start moving a bit closer to the offerings that this technology has to provide.
Yeah, any thoughts?
That's something I always look at technology from that perspective, right? That's big. Think about tapes, right? Like there was a point where people were just like, "Oh, tape," like, and then CDs, and then and it was like at first it was always that same thing of okay, really it's not so much about trying to figure it out right now, like break the full DNA of the particular thing, right? It becomes this conversation of okay, how do I get a good understanding of what's how do I get an understanding of how this works for me and my business? And then it goes, then you can, let's say, once you've seen how that operates positively for you, then it's like, okay, now we can start doing that. My God, I know how this works. Like, hey, I see a lot more CD players out here now. I see, like, okay, Texas got a CD player in its car. There's a lot I said, right? Instead of my trust,
And it.
but it was so think about something so simple, right? Like, okay, cars are now with CD players, right? Well, instead of me burning tapes, as a musician, say, like, instead of me burning tapes, I'm gonna start burning CDs. And what happens? Like, oh, I understand. Got CDs. Like, as far as the outside is concerned, that's some new stuff. Now you got the social aspect of these cases. It incentivizes you to want to learn more about it. Now it's just kind of, oh, I had a great experience with this. I want to learn more versus, hey, I don't know technology. You keep telling me I should get into it. I don't know where to start. Barrier to entry for me as a complete novice is extremely high. And you're going to get disenchanted and go away. And then how this typically works is you end up being one of those people who say, oh, I can see more. And then when it's super profitable, now you're like, man, I heard about that.
I almost did. So it's really, so if we break it down into two pieces, right? On the creator side and on the consumer side, or the fan side, right? So let's lean on the fan side, right? So how you mentioned where are people using this? How are they interacting, right? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges right now with kind of music NFTs, because it's so easy. Like I do it every day. It's so easy to go to Spotify and basically hit play and be like, yo, there's everything I want right here. Even though I know I'm a musician, I'm a composer, I release music, I've seen pay stub from BMI that go, that can't be right. Like, but but it's still easy, and it's going to be really difficult to change the consumer behavior. There's token dating and all of that kind of stuff too. But how do you see that evolve?
I mean, I'm surprised yet all this. And just kidding, cut it. Yes, just think about this for just a simple instance. Hey, I have a artist, posthumous artist, right? I got a bunch of B sides. Why can't I just make it sides in limited edition? Something that simple instead of deal with the stream price and all this other stuff. Just, I have maybe we're part of the family or something like that. It's a part of our state. We can do it all this. We got sides, why not? And all the proteins go to foundations. It goes to the family. Something so small would make huge impact. And and would be a positive representation of each day. But it's little simple things like that I see as extremely low barrier entry for not just people, fans especially. Because now fans are like, oh my God, my mom and my family, we all listen to this person, and now we hear these cuts, never heard the light of day. We don't have to get vinyl. I can just wallet on my phone, and I can download these MPs of this B-sides from God knows what era, and I can share it with the family. And now they multi-generations of people of fame. Yeah. And it just something seems very, for some, it may think, okay, well, that's kind of like something that small makes huge waves. And it does one thing, the other thing too, where you can contribute directly to the artist, not their thing, not their public, none of that. You bypass all of that straight to the fan. Because that's their offer to you, the fan. And you get to contribute back to them, showing them you feel things.
Yes, the disintermediation system. Yeah, yes. Hey, Robert, you look like you had something in mind. Second, talk about that on the fan side.
I think it's enough. I think that was what something has to make to that side. I hear a lot of people talk about like because everybody has to be struggling. I think it's gonna have to start with some content. Like you said, rolling Apple Music, go on Spotify, play. There's a certain reason why you go to easy access. I think what you start to see as the infrastructure and technology starts to stabilize, you start to see artists that'll start to release records. Like I was asking about the big artists. I'm which was early. Okay, so Bruno drops his next album as a T. That means it entice you to go check it out via that way. And I think you'll start to see a lot more artists in the next 5 years that'll do it that way, so they can actually get more revenue. So they don't be in my state. And that will then soon be able to then find and discover music from the big artists. And that's it.
Yeah.
One thing I think contribute to that is ultimately I think that we have to understand the psychology of music consumption is very different than visual art consumption, which is where NFTs first kind of got their rise to fame, right? In traditional visual art markets, the consumer had the perception of collectible, right? Their favorite artist might have, the edition prints of this particular piece of art. They were already of this mindset of collecting, right? And you do have this juxtaposition between consumers as well, right? But you have those who are collectors, those who are consumers purely, right? Like in the sense of like they would simply wish to experience the art, right? And with music, that is the extremes between those two are even greater than visual art, right? So with music, because of the ease of accessibility to these streaming platforms, of course you're gonna have a large majority of people choosing to experience the music, but not necessarily collect on the music, right? There are already existing mediums that artists choose to allow their true fans to collect from them, right? They might make a vinyl record, they might make a tape, right? Or they have merchandise, right? So these are already collectibles in the fundamental sense, right? So then when we move that into Web3, when we're thinking about NFTs, the challenge that we face with music is, I think, about changing the psychology on both sides, right? From the consumer side of allowing them to realize that the song itself can be a collectible, right? Without any additional peripheral or physical medium attached to it, right? Because we can now create that scarcity. But then on the other side of it, on the artist side, we have to say, okay, well, what is the value beyond just the song as the collector, right? Like, and you have to look at the NFT as not some immediate vehicle where all of a sudden you're completely rerouting what you're ultimately going to end up doing is just causing those fans of yours to pirate your stuff or just listen to somebody else, right? Because you have they have 60 million songs to choose from, right? And if your art is not in a space that is easy for them to consume, right, you're creating more challenges for yourself than opportunities, right? So I think that those are things that we really got to think about on both sides.
Yeah, I agree. I think when I think about NFTs specifically within kind of work architecture, and I'm explaining to someone like doesn't know, or like my brother just died. He hears blockchain, it's like whatever. I explained it to him. Very intelligent, it's not very blockchain. So I talk about it as an encapsulation of that. If you're basically able to draw this digital border around something, right? The borders around it, I made this thing, maybe we made it together, we carve up our digital border, and then we can automate permissions and access and usages and interactions and experiences, right? So you have this like technology, this technological capability to do stuff like that. Like, what can you do with it? Like, I've got some ideas, but I'd love to hear from you guys. Like, how can you push the boundaries on something you think about the concept? Or whoever wants to go.
Yeah, sure. I would say collaboration, like you're saying, is like one of those. We can start to collaborate in ways that will unfold, right? Like because of the value exchange, because of this information being written to the blockchain and the automation of that value transaction, right? So now, like, it's possible for artists to congregate. Say we had a song that had 100 artists on it, right? It's possible to do that and do so in a way that all of these artists are compensated for their actual contribution to that piece of art that they create. But even beyond that, right? Because we're working with we're working in a whole new paradigm of technology also. It's not just blockchain technology or Web3, but you also have to think about, the coalescence of all of the other technologies currently at play, right? So your artificial intelligence, your machine learning, your natural language processing, your AR and VR, your XR experiences, right? So all of these technologies, right, are you can enhance the value of that with blockchain and with those transactions, right? So now I, as a music artist, can collaborate with 100 different artists and create a generative music piece that has it's one song, but it exists in like 10,000 different forms that is algorithmically generated based on all of the stems and the different layers that we contribute to this ultimate piece, right? So that's a completely new way of collaborating and creating and experiencing.
Did you see the thing that BT did a while back, where he released that one song that was basically like you guys heard of Urban Ragas before, like Indian Raga, classical Hindustani Ragas. They're written based on time of day, based on feeling. So there's one written for the brain, there's one written. I learned a lot about it. So my buddy plays guitar and all that. But anyway, he took this idea and said, here's this song, not this linear piece, but this aggregate collection of elements that is automated based on the holder of this key, right? And you get a different experience at the time. It's pretty fast. It's cool.
Ask that question. You talk about it. There was a conversation that I was having with the team that I work with, Adam, and building virtual space and virtual experience. Having a lot of us in the team are much music people, we were just commenting on the fact that even though we're doing something like Hungry, right? We're building a virtual world. It's like we had that conversation like, man, I wish people came together in the music industry, like we could come together for Call of Duty. But it's smart as thought. It's smart as thought. It was like, wouldn't it be so interesting to have that same experience that you get from playing a game like Call of Duty? Because when you think about it from that perspective, you and squad of 5, 6, whatever, you guys are trying to take this map or whatever. You get you're putting in all these hours into, your play style, your ability to play teamwork, and then when you eat it, what you get. Not forced to eat it, what you get when you're at home, Xbox, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Flex,
You know,
pure
like,
flex.
you're right, right? You gotta highlight that. And that is enough interest to go and take on, like, nah, I'm not the one. But let me call my guys up online. Or run. But it's kind of like that same energy and moving that into space at a time now where technologically we can have it to fight out. Because when you think about it, it's not the old days music anymore where everything is okay, we gotta fly here to this, fly here to that. No, a good portion of the records that I can hear on or it's like people are all over the world, like literally emailing, using all forms of technology to articulate their particular contributions to the thing. And in doing so, the song comes out, you didn't even realize it none of these people were ever in the same room when it got done. And to that point, for us, there's so much stuff on the business side you have to make that make sense. But the technology and its capability to be able to bring people together on the music space, we have a place that we can to look at that psychology. I look at games all the time for that kind of psychology. Okay, how are we building value to be able to make people just want to travel and then building the technology that. And it's kind of what mind goes in that direction to see that come to a tangible fruition because you wouldn't have to teach anybody. We understand that now. You go to any like kid, any child, and you put a controller in there, they already know time. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't even have a question. And it's gotten so bad now that I had to explain to my cousin the other day the save thing is a floppy disk. He didn't know what that was. Like, but that's what happens. Like, we know it. We understand the concept where it comes from. It doesn't.
Don't even talk about punch cards. Anyone know what punch cards? Yeah. Really old school. Like Stone Tap.
But to that kind of thought process, I push my head that way in that space of trying to make this solution.
Yeah. So going back to this, stay in the world of this drawing the digital encapsulation stuff, right? You have the input side, which is artists. You have capture technology, so Pro Tools, Ableton, whatever it is. And you got the business side. Hey, if we're writing a song, hey, I did melody, I 20% cool, right? We do that negotiation. So there's that piece that happens. And then the music actually gets made. And then it spits out the other side. Right now the systems that operate all of that are very disjointed and in favor of third party services, right? So what I know, Robert, you've been working really hard on some of the song split publishing side of the fence. Where are you seeing the exciting inflection points from that perspective? And we can go into something for each side.
I'm very excited. Because it goes back to it's actually about the value. So a lot of people don't know publishing side about $1 billion in publishing books. Every single year, a lot of that's written register. They're registered correctly. Second, music artists only take home 12% of the revenue that the music generates. So you mentioned a BMI state. So for those who don't know, the value chain, you guys listen to music on Spotify, right? So Spotify takes the revenue. And there's these agencies that collect the revenue from Spotify. They take the revenue. The label takes the revenue. Publishing companies like us take the revenue. Then the artists are left with 12% revenue. And 6%. So something that's super exciting with this type of technology, while we're still focused on the publishing side, since it's a problem, you want to get the equity percentage ownership. You want to get that tied in very so that way everybody knows who makes what percentage of the songs and not worry about royalties and stuff. But what's really exciting about, I think this is the funny part that on the tech side, raise your hand on the technology side, it's I feel like blockchain and NFTs is so much more to it. Like right now, it's been dubbed and branded as collective, which is funny to me because I never put it as a collective. What I've always thought of, actually, I shout out my teacher, the spirit of writing. Right? So, yeah, I remember I took a class and we started talking about smart contracts. We started looking at coding in smart contracts, which actually was the right first act creating user publishing to the form of smart contract, which is basically the base of what NFT is. So super excited to actually have added to that. And the importance of that is instead of that old value chain that I subscribe with, listen to music on Spotify, hear my takes and cut. Now in the future, artists can essentially they got the equity percentages for their record, and that song, and then encapsulate it, turn it into it, to them, so they can sell it directly to you, and the artist can get paid instantly. Maybe take like 96% of the revenue. And the other hassle when it comes to music because you're paying per stream, right? So the way the music industry works is you allow streams to accumulate over quarters. So it may take 6 to 9 months for you to actually get paid the royalties you actually release a song. But what you can do by tokenizing and turning the song to you get paid on a sale instantly. So
So imagine this, you got my brain spinning, and I've been thinking about this idea for a while. So imagine we're all in the studio, Sean comes in with a great concept, we all add to it, we're sitting there on a console, getting ready to bounce it out on Pro Tools, right? And then the Pro Tools, you guys familiar with Pro Tools, DAW, record music. And in the file structure of Pro Tools, there's not DAW, digital audio station. Thank you. Yeah. So we get done, we're stoked, it's awesome. And instead of saying, export to WAV, export to MP3, export to NFT, right? Where all that stuff is pretty, but you have to have an encapsulation mechanism for what we're talking about, right? So if you get that on the front end, there's a layer in there that pops out on the back end. Anything that pops out can fit into the system that works better, right? I think that would be it.
Yeah, that would be fascinating. It reminds me of a company that I was speaking to, I believe, Open Audience, and one of their propositions was to your point about finding a way to capture that value before it, goes all over the place to the, labels and execs and all of that. But the way that they sought to do this, it had to be something that was embedded at the DAW level, right? Or at the actual format of the song file itself. Because open audio, I'm just speaking about it because I kind of brought it up, but they sought to think Shazam for Web3, right? But like inscribing inaudible signature that would automatically trigger a smart contract.
Kind of like a sub-harmonic frequency you can't hear or something.
Yes, exactly. So embed that into the song, and when it's picked up, by a computer or whatever, internet access, whatever, it'll tap into that database to then automatically trigger that smart contract and distribute that royalty or whatever it is, right? So that's something that can happen at that fundamental level, at the format level. I would say that's a larger project or a grander horizon because you have to get embedded with Apple and all of these other companies that make these formats and these platforms. Yet at the same time, there's always infrastructure that is created to be the legacy bridge between things, right? So there are other companies that I'm familiar with that had a similar concept, but rather than them trying to attack it at that fundamental protocol layer, they're saying, "Oh, well, we'll do that work." So this is one of the things that I talk to people about when it comes to centralized versus decentralized. That's a whole conversation maybe for another day. But we're going from like a super centralized, a economy to like a somewhat centralized economy, right? Everything's not just going to become instantly centralized, but some of these new forms of centralized companies that are coming out, creating some very fascinating things, right, are allowing for that legacy bridge experience where now they're saying, okay, well, you don't even have to worry about turning your song to another format, right? We can use the API calls from Shazam to actually figure out your song when it's played, where it's actually coming from. And then we can tie that to the smart contract. And then we'll build a bridge of an automation that allows that to trigger the smart contract so that you can then get your royalties for this, that, the third.
So, all right, so that's really interesting. So, say we're all, let's say we're all in Sandbox. Everyone here is in Sandbox. We've got our Oculus on, we're walking around, we're interacting. Say we go into the Gucci guys. Go into Gucci, we're kind of checking things out. Like, that's pretty cool. Buy some shoes, put on my avatar. That's right. That's right. So I'm in there, and there's music. And Aaron's song is playing on some playlist in Gucci store in the Central. How is that going to get figured out? So BMI, I'm not going to talk about BMI, they're great, but like, they're paper driven, right? I still submit forms to them in paper that I have to like take a picture of and submit, right? They're just like, can someone else figure that out? Be like, guys, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to be the music rights guy. Like, what do you guys?
I think that's great, especially that that's my day. Listen, I've been in a weird space between like doing virtual concerts, building stuff in that space, and then mixing in all those different instruments that come into it. And being a music person myself, the very first thing I meant was, okay, so this is going to consist of a service. Cool. And we can build UI all day to make this accessible. We can make it where, we can click this link, or our first idea was click this virtual world behind the paywall, click the link, go to the thing, and you can walk around and watch it, right? And I was like, oh, that's cool. Awesome. Okay, so who's collecting on this instance in this virtual space? Technically speaking, right? Like, I can have this thing up 365 days a year, 7 days a week, every hour of the single day. And in the physical world, that would be generated income. Someone's collecting on this instance, you have a licensing of some kind to do this. I remember growing up, my dad told me the vilest thing that my family,
my grandfather worked it.
My dad had to buy, he had to pay the licensing to BMI to have him go in the chapel because they own the rights to the temple. And if a BMI person came and he wasn't up on his license, he'd have to stop. So he told like that's something that they could do. Some of it is the whole thing. Okay, we don't have to worry about that.
And that's an interactive license too, because it's not just playing, like people are singing.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
So it was interesting. Like, I'm thinking about that kind of concept. Like, all right, in a virtual space, who is actually policing this? And then I started asking questions to my friends in the industry, and they're like, I'm gonna send you this person. I'm gonna send you this person. And eventually, I'm like talking about it. People like, yeah, and I'm like, well, this.
I know a guy that's working on some stuff.
That would be the place where like people like us, yeah, we're asking those questions. But when you think about the footprint and then the history that entertainment has across the board, until someone's like making billions of dollars in the space, traditionally speaking, that's when you see the bad pop up. But we're in a place now where I think that's something that we have to prioritize because of the dependence that every artist has. Solutions like what Robert has is a perfect example of time business. Because now you can stay on the phone, you don't need the establishment to put out a record. And to get the community buy-in, you can do that all out of your house and never have to touch a single established business, but someone still has to collect on their behalf away. That problem.
I think that's the question is how to somebody. The interesting part is streaming versus purchasing something to purchase it as a NFT. You just let's say you play it, which is or music and stuff. I think that's
Do those models even apply? That's
exactly. Yeah, so it's the question is what legal laws still apply as well as how do you track it? Talk about in the metaverse and actually that way just purchase it, not necessarily license or consent.
so let's look at this, right? So let's go back to we're in the sandbox and just got out of the store, paid way too much money for stuff, probably want. And we get out there and there's a park. And in the park, there's a food box. So I'm gonna call it food box, very old school. It's like tape deck, like maybe a break dancing board, like right to right, and it plays NFTs, right? So if I have an NFT that's compatible with that food box and I put it in, and I own it, I own all the rights to it, I have full IP rights. If I play it and you're listening to it, do I get in trouble?
Okay, so great question. So here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Before you can even get to enforcing law on these things, you have to get to a point of actually writing, right? And actually, from the artist side as well as the entertainment where it's protecting the artists, right? And the thing is that the space is so new, people aren't thinking about this as it's emerging. Now we're starting to have this conversation. Now I'm starting to see entertainment lawyers actually in the Web3 space doing the ability to write out some of these more nuanced use cases, applications of music in these virtual spaces in NFTs. So there is a DAO and media company called Water and Music, and they basically cover all things music, Web3 related. They have an entertainment lawyer, Jonathan Lar, who actually helped them build the contract builder for music artists, right? Now, it's different than a smart contract builder, right? So for those of you all who are familiar with the NFT space, have been trying to explore that, right? You have your NFT platforms where you can go and put your content on their platform, right? That's kind of similar to like signing with a label or being under a publication company or whatever it is, right? But then you also have independent routes to creating your own NFTs, right? You can write your own smart contract if you're a developer, right? But if you don't have that expertise and you still want to go that independent route, how would you do that, right? There's a company called Manifold, right, which has the Manifold Studio, which basically gives you that UI, that UX as a layperson, right, to go in and configure your own smart contract so that you can release your own NFT and mint it on the blockchain, right? But then that's separate from the Water and Music contract book, which is specifically for the actual law behind what you're selling, right? So now you as an artist can go in and define, okay, what rights do I actually want to sell with this NFT, right? Again, the music economy and the visual arts economy, they work very different, right? So when it comes to selling an NFT, it's very different than the experience one might have buying one visual art NFT, right? Oftentimes those visual artists, yeah, whatever, do what you want with it, turn it on the shirt, sell it again. I don't care. They're getting the secondary market royalty on that, right? So they're like, by all means, you can do whatever you want with this piece of art. But with music, it's very different, right? Like the experience is different. Oftentimes, we as artists still have use cases that we want that music for, or we're still performing that music, or it is on Spotify and streaming or whatever, right? Or we might be in like some partial deal with a label where we can actually sell all the rights to that thing, right? So this contract builder allows you to specify and in legal terms that are in deference to Web3 and NFTs, it allows you to go in and say, okay, well, by buying this NFT, you get public display rights, you get the resale rights, you get distribution rights, or you don't, right? You get the copyright, you get the mechanical, like, so those types of platforms are critical tools for artists, I would say, because if you're not doing that up front, then you do run into that issue of the purchaser basically buying this thing and assuming their rights, and then going off and doing whatever they want with that piece of. Sure.
Okay, so who would pay? Because you have when artists play their music on the radio pays at the end of the year all the time that it's play. So if I wanted to stream the song in the metaverse, am I going to be the one responsible for paying your royalties?
But it's a phone stream, right? Question goes into how you purchase.
Right. So
you just purchase. It's like, let's say, just like you said, like a boombox, you buy a CD, right?
Right.
You don't need a license because you bought the CD, so now you own it. So now you don't have to pay anybody. The reason why we have to pay streaming now is because you have to license from a company. So it's like right now, if you want to open, they start playing music, for example. They don't necessarily own it, right? So you like Spotify. So it's a license that you're supposed to get in order to play.
Well, let me rephrase the question. So if I purchase your NFT and then I want to play it in the metaverse, then who pays the royalty if it's written in the contract that it based on that the whole situation? So who would pay the royalty if I'm streaming it or not? If I'm playing it in the metaverse.
To me, I'll jump in real quick. To me, it's a whole contract. Right? So you have, and it also depends what the NFT is, right? So there are NFTs that give you access to 1% of the royalty stream, right? Or there are NFTs that give you access to not the IP ownership, maybe some of the publishing or something, right? So it's what are the terms of it, right? But then also like where you play it, because a lot of the money that comes from comes into those little BMI checks are people paying BMI licenses, right? So is that what you're asking? Like, who's feeding the upstream system?
Right. So because if I buy a music NFT, in my mind, how I understand NFT, that's mine. Now I might not be able to have to make a copyright the smart contract that I can do that, but it's mine. So if I want to play it wherever I want to play it, I should be able to play it. And so based on what Sean was saying, I was wondering, like, who, if I want to play it on that boombox, Sandbox or Centraland, so am I going to be required to pay?
I think your use case, like, that's one of the, like, bare bones, like, the bare minimum of what any artist, music artist would sell you the rights to is the public display rights. You know what I'm saying? Like, they would absolutely give you that right to actually play it in spaces. But to your point, like, you're talking about playing in certain metaverses, right? And then when you're getting down to the metaverse level, then it kind of, your question has some validity to it because, there are platforms that are emerging that are utilizing nodes, so to speak. So I'm thinking about Gala Games and Gala Music and the whole universe that they're creating things, right? Gala Music, they have music player nodes, right? And the owners of those nodes, as well as the artists that get streamed through those nodes, right, get some type of compensation for that, right? And however that actually, like the money that came through the revenue streams that they created, right? That's where that income comes from. Not necessarily from you, the person who wants to play it, right? But in turn, it very well might be, right? It could be because, we're now dealing with a space that allows for microtransactions, right? So it doesn't have to be like, oh, I have to pay $5 or whatever. It could be like 0.0000 something of a cent for every second of the song that's played, something like that. But it could be automatically pushed through.
Well, no, I love all that, but the shipping terminal. I don't know if you do all that brandatory.
Yeah, I actually met at TMYC.
Okay, yeah. Stuff, with the share protocol, and basically it's based on your wallet.
Yep.
So what you have with the wallet, and it can have like degenerate, like it could be that you have the song in your wallet and you don't play $5. Yes. And the artist. So I like that it's like the creator. It's basically every creator function like a smart contract. Like it's that all your own, and when you
get a set of song or you sell a song, set whatever you want around that. Now, how all that, I mean, obviously it happens on smart contract, you could record it, play it somewhere else, all sorts of crazy stuff, but that's just cut paste, right?
Yeah.
So, it's like playing our rules. So I think that's a really interesting construct to say that it has to.
Absolutely. To your point, I actually did mint on shared app.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was on the
The beta?
Yeah, I was on the beta. I was talking to Jason well on the team. And the song that I have on this platform is what their protocol is allowed for is pay for access, right? Or pay for stream. So it's like I have a song on there that you pay 5 cents for that you have access to for 5 minutes. And once that 5 minutes is up, you kind of go back to an active state and you can pay that 5 cents again to access it, right? So it's those types of protocols, those types of use cases that are introducing themselves to the economy now that are really changing the dynamic. And nothing is set in stone. Space is so fluid. There are so many technologies that are talking about.
It's a great test to throw out there and see, right? Because as a user perspective, am I going to get frustrated if I got to pay up this now? Yeah, you real quick, and then you had a question.
So how can an artist sign for a major NFTs? Is that in alignment with their?
It depends on the terms.
And I think it also depends on the position, because we had this conversation at another event where someone will say, if Beyonce drops the NFT right now, it's gonna go crazy. I was like, well, Beyonce community has to be onboarded into the space to even know how to buy it. So it's gonna be a slow roll. And last night I was in a Twitter space and we were talking about NFT as music, what that means. And there was a guy who came in with death, and he's actually working with, he said, the top 5 artists in the industry, trying to figure that out. And I don't know, but at any rate, I see you guys are doing it now. But no, at any rate, I was just confused. I was like, well, I think those artists' biggest issue is that the community that they cater to, the their music, might not be ready for Web3.
Well, no, yes, so the majors have groups dedicated to Web3. Some are very well put together. Some are just kind of starting, right? But if you have a contract that is a 360 deal, like you got to be like, hey, mom, dad, I want to do this thing. Like, yeah, oh, you can do it all you want. We're gonna just do this, right?
Because I just dealt with that personally with one of my clients. Very 360 also comes with lights. So that's ours. That doesn't have this photo. Let's count. I had that conversation.
So Joanna Holtz is here next week. If she's an IP lawyer, they have full IP law conversation about this kind of stuff. So just be very careful on 360.
Yes.
And you can negotiate all that, but they're trying to slip everything in there.
Yeah.
But you put it after the lights, and that's
So that's what it is. Like an artist form known as next to property. So you kind of depending on what you depends on what you got to do for it.
Get out of the
Kind of dark books, Chris. Remember that nonsense? Yeah.
I
No.
mean,
In the front, you had a question?
Oh yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah.
I have a lot of to the young lady's point, and I think you made a comment about how assimilate like function. Like if you're paying $10 a month for Spotify, it's kind of essentially taking that and breaking it down. So it's like but I can see how that is scary. It's like unless they seamlessly integrate that process into the class, they really intimidating to them every time. Even if it ends up equating to less than what you're paying. So I think it's really interesting how record labels and artists will get structure that experience so that it's like seamless and kind of like unknown as possible. I think that it's like this building with that drywall. Everything functions fine, but you see all the wires and all the stuff. It's scary. Yeah. So that was my comment back. My question is, do you think that artists will experience
more of an independent ownership perspective of NFTs or will major record labels and streaming platforms benefit more from the technology? Well, yeah, you know, I said both artists, as I was saying earlier, is essentially this current structure of that artists will take 12% revenue, potential that we have in blockchain, that potential to 96% take out what which is more important for the NFT artists. Essentially, I can sell less copies and make more money. So that was like both things, both bars and actually more revenue. For songs I think out as well. I think for labels, label job is to find the most profitable artists. And I think people with us, like we're actually approach from labels and publishers because essentially our same process of publishing side for the entities. Essentially by embedding their contract in the song, also make sure that they will get cut out of it. So I think a great example is I don't know if you look at the pandemic. Tory Lanez dropped like a mixtape. They paid like $1 billion in a minute. Actually, I have my friends who work on that. So it's like nobody just got paid. Like one of the problems with the infrastructure now is that there's only limited capacity in terms of how you split and distribute that revenue. So it's like we're looking to help labels as well as other collaborators on the record is once the revenue starts to come in automatic moves to if you are to it, if you are an artist, you have like universal, the money just automatically dispersed to all the equity holders, which would keep a lot of issues like government like Lil Wayne in the Bergman situation arguing, oh, I had to audit my bank because they're keeping this with my money. And there's all this transactional money, universal cash is supposed to artists and somehow it gets lost in the way. So at this way, yeah. So it's like this one of labels eliminate certain confusion. Sometimes they can like sometimes they are perpetrators, but they'll just help the accounting standpoint. We essentially have this system that's on the accounting set up. This is to care and out to this is they kind of shit out some themselves. Things both processes.
Another question back. Yeah, you right here. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I agree. To answer earlier, I'm barely pretty new to the tech space, but like you like I have a question about the writing side, then write for writing, people that want to be creative writers. But first and foremost, to piggyback off what you were saying, can you define how smart contracts work in the space? And case studies, that's where artists are different from 360 deals and use the contract to protect creative control in order to make more money per album sales, whether a mix of digital and like hard copy.
I would say that I haven't seen any particular cases where the smart contract was the cause or the impetus which they were able to break away from that 360 deal. But I have seen where artists, for whatever reason, either they timed out on their deal where they actually suffice the clause what they provide to that deal that they have now exited, or they bought themselves out, right? So I've seen artists do that and emerge into the Web3 space and talk about how different it actually is for them. It's the point, the things that he mentioned are theoretical. You know what I'm saying? Like these vehicles to create automatic splits, the royalty, the secondary market sales, all of that stuff is baked in to most of these platforms, if not to the smart contract itself, right? So it's not a lot of like outside of learning the technology, understanding how to actually create a community within the Web3 space and actually engaging with them, incentivizing them to purchase the NFT. The infrastructure is already there for them to do that. When it comes to the splits, there's a platform called oxsplits.xyz, 0x splits. And basically what this platform allows you to do is it basically allows you to say, okay, hey, I want 5 different wallets. Like we're gonna create a wallet address, right? And then this wallet address is automatically going to pipe money to these 5 wallet addresses that I assign to it. And for each one of these wallet addresses, I can give it a percentage number, right? So artists can go in and do that right now. They can say, hey, I'm gonna partner with my violinist and my guitarist and my drummer and my producer and my mix engineer. I'm asking you to say, hey, I may not have much to pay you right now, right? But we can do automatic splits guaranteed, and we can, you'll have secondary market sales as well. Like you'll be able to receive royalties from that. So that's some of the incentivization that artists have in an infrastructure that already exists if they allow themselves the time to learn and actually immerse themselves into the space. The challenge when it comes to independent artists, more so for them rather than major artists, is that emphasis of trying to incentivize people based on secondary market sales, right? Because if you're an independent artist, for most music NFTs that I've seen in the space right now, like secondary market volume is incredibly low, right? So it's like, how do we actually properly incentivize people, knowing that secondary market sales may or may not come, so there's that.
One quick thing I wanted to chime in, mention DeFi. One of the coolest things I've seen lately on the DeFi side is on the live event space, live music. So there's a company called X-Tips. It's out there right now that's using a protocol called Get, GET. So Get has a token, and you can buy the token. For that token, you get to participate as like a promoter, right? In shows. So instead of having one giant entity fund this production, it's basically like a crowdfunded show. So I can't remember, they've already done like 2 shows, some pretty big acts, but like they returned money to the token holders like within a week. They made money, it all worked, and like you imagine like say, hey man, I funded Nazi show like last week. That's what I did for my investment. Oh, I've got a 401k. Hey, I'm funding shows. Like it's pretty cool, right? Yeah.
So what's going on is we got people on that. This has been awesome. Audience member. So I want to give you guys time to go say hi to those folks.
Oh, sure.
Meet some people. So why don't we maybe take the last question?
Yeah, we have a couple
minutes.
Yeah. All the way in the back.
Yeah, it's not really a question. I'm just kind of gonna comment on. I think there's a big fundamental issue with consumption of music as an NFT. I think the benefits greatly outweigh as a creator. There's a lot more benefits, whereas a distributor, there's a lot more benefits than as a collector or consumer. I do think smart contracts could pretty much change how royalties are distributed. I think the B2B side is the more important low hanging fruit in the music industry. If I can sell a sample or sell a feature or sell anything license my music for commercial usage, I think that makes a lot more sense as an NFT than me buying an NFT of someone's song. I do think there's benefits to independent artists if they can entice their user base to buy their NFT instead of taking a advance from a label. That's probably maybe a better route for some people. But I think that once the end of the life cycle adopts smart contracts as far as the distribution of royalties, then everyone can kind of benefit from the whole ecosystem. Right now, the front end, it's easy to let's say DistroKid lets you drop your music as an NFT and they launch a smart contract for you, and you can set the splits of hey, my publishing rights go to this wallet, this I sampled this song, they get this percentage of songwriting. That could all be done on a smart contract, super easy. But who's collecting the royalties and then distributing them back to those people on that contract in a crypto manner? I think that's where it has to go before it really can benefit everyone.
Totally agree. There's a tool and then there's the philosophy that feeds the tool, right? If the inputs to the tool aren't good, then what comes downstream, even if the tech is great, it's like a microphone, right? You got a U87 microphone in the studio, and I can't sing work today. No one cares about the U87, right? So yeah, you're spot on, man. The tech can handle it, but it still has to have very thoughtful flow on how
Yes. No, it's just that's something that technologists always have to remember. Just dealing with people. All the tools can be great, but as a musician, you still have our own fan base that you have to grow. And you still, and nowadays, you still have to be an entrepreneur. You are marketing, you have the music business now, you have the treat stuff. Whatever tool you choose has to be a knowledge part of the construction. You have to, because there are plenty of artists now that they think having social media followers is great, and it is.
It is.
But will those people come to the show?
Right. Right.
Will they come to they won't come to the show, they come to the virtual version.
Just to talk about a tool, you said sync licensing. There's a platform called Frequency on the Algorand blockchain, and they're doing sync licensing. And yes, I agree with your sentiments. I think that the technology and those who are developing it are understanding completely where the philosophy and psychology that goes into consumption of music. So I do see a transition kind of happening where there's less focus being on like music NFT as a collectible thing and the underlying infrastructure of the music business and that being facilitated by the tokenization of music or whatever it is.
Well, hey guys, I know we got 4 questions. I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna hang out for a bit. I'm sure these guys are as well. Lennon Blockchain Center, you guys have done awesome things here. Thanks for coming out. One thing I'll leave you with: we're early.
Yes.
Learn some stuff. Do some tests that you can de-risk. Have some fun with some buddies and learn. That's how we all get there. It's gonna be fun.
Jimmy, Robert, Sean, doing the thing. So every Thursday, we're bringing events. The next week, the topic is intellectual property, NFTs, and the law. How to, pretty important topic. Senior advisor to Washington doing and Shane's. Oh,